Hey guys, so today we're going to do SAT Math, and our topic is going to be basic trig. So in this video, we're going to talk about a few things about trigonometry, the basics of trigonometry. Mostly we'll talk about a couple of different graphs, 3 different graphs that you may or may not see on the SAT, and a couple of basic functions using triangles. So let's get started with this topic. Alright, before I get started with explaining what these are, I want to tell you guys that trigonometry it's not tested as much on the SAT as it is on the SAT subject test. So this is an optional video if you want to learn about trigonometry, but it will not be tested on the actual SAT. Okay, so now let's get started with talking about the different types of graphs you may see. So the first type of graph we'll talk about is the sine graph. Okay, so the sine graph is just a basic curve. Not a basic curve, but so its domain goes from negative pi to positive pi. Okay, it has a length of 2 pi. So when drawing this, the sine graph goes from here to here. It has a range of 1 to -1. Alright? This is how you draw a sine graph. That's all you need to know for basic trigonometry purposes. Even for the regular SAT, the subject SAT test. And you will have a calculator with you during the SAT, so you do not have to worry about having to draw these constantly. Alright? So now let's go on to our second graph. Let's move that out of the way. Our second graph is called a cosine graph. This is pretty much the same thing as a sine graph, except it's been shifted over a little. So let's notate this first. Cosine graph. It also has a domain of negative pi to positive pi, and a range of 1 to -1. Okay, so to draw a sine graph, you start from here and go down here like that. This was drawn poorly. Let me redraw this. Okay, let's try that again. So you start from here and you go down to -1. Start here and go down to -1. And this is a cosine graph. And if you think about it really, really carefully, if you extend this graph and have it go up again, and have it go up again here, this is actually the same thing as a sine graph, except it's been shifted over. So, and that's, again, this is all you need to know for the actual SAT. You won't be quizzed on it, but it's good information to know. So, let's look at our next graph here. Let's move that out of the way, and there we go. This third graph is called the tangent graph. This is a bit different than the other graphs that we have, but again, same concept. So what we want to do here is, first, this also has a range from negative pi to positive pi. Well, one cycle of it is from negative pi to positive pi. It has asymptotes at negative pi over 2 and at positive pi over 2. And if you haven't learned this, but asymptotes are just lines where the graph does not cross. So this is all we need to know And the range of a tangent graph is from negative infinity to infinity. It does not have a restriction on its range. So to draw this, all we do is this, that, and that. And that is how you draw a tangent graph. Again, you won't need to use this on the actual SAT, but it's just good information to know. Alright, so now let's talk about some important stuff. As I said, we were going to use triangles to explain what not real trigonometry, but some functions of trigonometry. So let's say we have this triangle. Let's label sides A, B, and C. We have our angle here. Okay? So there are three functions in trigonometry you need to know. The sine of your angle, which is called theta, is equal to something. Cosine of theta is equal to something. And the tangent of theta is equal to something. So, before we get into what sine, cosine, and tangent equal to, let's talk about the parts of a triangle. So, this here is called the adjacent side or base. Let's call this the adjacent side. Adjacent side. So, any side that's next to the angle is the adjacent side. Any side that is opposite to the angle is called, well, you could have guessed that, the opposite side. So let's write that out. Opposite. Okay? And we all know that any side that's opposite to the right angle is called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. I think I spelled that right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. So, now let's talk about a little acronym I've learned over the years to remember what this means. So, it's called TOA. Okay? To find out the sine of an angle, you would use the opposite and hypotenuse. To find the tangent, the cosine of an angle, you would use adjacent and the hypotenuse sides. And to find the tangent, you would use the opposite and adjacent sides. Now let's put this to use and make ourselves some small equations we can use to memorize these. So, sine, as we said, was so. So means opposite and hypotenuse. This is our opposite side. And this is our hypotenuse. So we would write this as sine is equal to A over C, or opposite over hypotenuse. Our cosine, if you remember, was so ca. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So we could write this as adjacent, which is B, over hypotenuse, which is C. And tangent. Tangent, which was SOHCAHTOA. Opposite over adjacent. So this is our opposite side, this is our adjacent side. So we can write this as A over B. These three equations here will help you solve many, many problems with trigonometry. So let's go into a problem and let's see if we can put this knowledge to use. So let's say we have a triangle with our angle right here. Let's call this length 5. This length, actually, let's call this length 3, this length 4, and this length 5. And we know that this is our right angle. So, let's say you're told that So you want to find the sine of that angle. How would you do that? So let's remember our acronym. So TOA. Okay? This is very important. So means opposite over adjacent. Well, opposite means opposite the angle. The side opposite to the angle is this side. So that means we would write that as opposite 4 over hypotenuse. We know our hypotenuse is right here. So we write that as 4 over 5. Now let's say someone wants the tangent of the angle. Okay? So we know that tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite is here, and adjacent is right here. So we could write this as 4 over 3, because opposite over adjacent. Okay. Now, let's say they want the cosine. Okay. Let's change that color. Cosine of the angle. So we know that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, the adjacent side is right here, and hypotenuse is right here. So that would be 3 over 5. And that's it. That is basic trigonometry, and that is all you will need to know for now. So have a good day, and stay tuned for the next video.